Hello, everybody. Here we go. We're about to start a new session of the Silmarillion Book Club or the Casual Book Club. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Casual Book Club session number 15. Estelore, Estelpod. You can find that on various different networks, podcasting services, and even on YouTube or even on Spotify, actually. Hello, Michi, and hello, Tor.
Hi.
Well, Tor can't hear us, obviously, at the moment. But that's fine. Yeah, okay, it's been a long while. I think we took a long hiatus from that. How long is it? Like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months? A long time. Obviously I did like last one without you. I think the last one was without you, the one before was with you. So okay, I'm gonna do this one thing and just summing up the story till now. So it's all from memory and whatever I remember. So bear with me. Basically, the Silmarillion starts with, in the beginning there was Eru Ilúvatar the One, and hold on, let me turn off the fan. It's making too much noise. Alright, in the beginning there was Eru, the One, who is the real god in the Tolkien universe, and he had a bunch of Valars and Maiars. And he had a bunch of Maiars and Valars. Valars being the main angels, angelic figures, as we can think of in our Judeo-Christian culture, or main culture as well. Just demigods. the one who are on a sub tier to the real god, having different abilities and everything. And Ilúvatar showed them a vision, a vision of a world that was. And that was the vision that Ilúvatar wanted to materialize, wanted them to help build. A vision that he had of making a world with things in it, things being different creatures and everything. So the Valar agreed to, well, they saw the vision first, they sang the music, helped create it artistically, helped create it by just visualizing it, singing about it, thinking about it, and then the world was made. And at the center of the world was the flame imperished, and then the Valar descended into this world that was just created, and it was just land, and there was nothing on it. And it was the Valar's job, different jobs, to make something, to create a world, to create things in it, different creatures and everything that is in the world in Middle Earth was their vision or their job to create, basically. I'll come to Maiar in a second, but the main Valar, let's go over them if anybody needed any reminding of them. Manwë, the main Valar, he is the king of all of Arda. He is the main guy, the main vice regent, if that's a word. I don't know if any are familiar with, but that's the word. He's the vice regent of Eru Ilúvatar on Earth, which is Arda. And well, he has obviously some superpowers, to put it lightly. He controls the airs, everything that flies and whatnot. And then his spouse is Varda, who was the first one to make the stars that we see in our night sky, and one of the constellations that is really famous even in Tolkien's Middle Earth is the Sickle of the Valar, or as we know it as, I think, the Great Bear. That's what I think it is. But yeah, there's a Sickle of the Valor, and you can see it even in Lotro every now and then if you look up at the nighttime sky, because the Lotro devs obviously are huge Tolkien nerds, and they obviously wanted to portray the Sickle of the Valar, as it's called in Tolkien universe. But okay, so these were the Valars, they created the world, and obviously, like all good stories, we have a villain. That was Melkor. Melkor was the first one, even as the Valar were seeing this vision that Ilúvatar, the god, was giving to them. Melkor just saw it and wanted to change it, and he just started doing his own thing. And there was some discord in the music, so, you know, like when you're playing in a band and there's some asshole guitarist doing his own thing, and that's what pretty much Melkor did. He was just playing his own tunes, and he didn't care about the melody and the rhythm of the rest of them. So that's how there's discord in the world. But obviously, when everybody got descended into the world, when everybody got descended into the world, the Melkor came with it. Only one thing I'll say, because it was part of the scripture, as if I may call it, that we were given, is that during the discord that Melkor did, Ilúvatar did say that whatever you will do, you will only make my creation better or towards the purpose of it. Like, whatever thing you can do, or whatever you will do, whatever bad thing and whatnot you will do, it will be towards the purpose that I intended it to be. That's pretty much means that only Ilúvatar, Eru, is omniscient, and that all the Valar are subdued or subjugated to the will of Eru Ilúvatar. But anyways, moving on, the Valar descend into the world, try to make their vision come true. Everybody had a job to do. Manwe took care about the airs and the creatures that flew, and the great eagles of Manwe, obviously, as we know them from later Silmarillion as well, without any spoilers and whatnot, even in the Lord of the Rings. Thorondor and his descendants, Gvahir, the eagle who rescues Gandalf from Orthanc when Gandalf was trapped. Well, that Gvahir is a descendant of Thorondor. Thorondor being eagle created by Manwe. You see how it all got connected together by Tolkien so magnificently and amazingly. And so they start creating, and then Melkor obviously descended into the world, our big Satan kind of figure, and he obviously tried destroying shit, as evil people often do. I guess he was just doing his job, I guess. So that was the problem. So the Valar made stuff, Melkor destroyed them, and that was the rivalry that continued until then. The final plan of Ilúvatar, Eru, that he did not tell anybody at all, was the creation of these children. These creations of his own imagination without any knowledge of the Valar. The Valar did not know anything about this new being that were made exclusively by Eru Ilúvatar himself, and they were the Elves. Eru created the Elves, and they were in the Middle Earth, and the Valar obviously being super fascinated by anything that Eru makes or does on his own, and they were super curious, and they were super adoring and lovely and all that and curious. So they wanted to call the Elves to their realm that they created, a little further away from the center, middle Earth, basically. It was the land of Aman, as we later know it as Valinor, and that's where the Valar eventually resided, leaving all that northern Middle Earth territory to Melkor, because well, he had his big fortress over there. So the Elves found the Valar found the Elves in near the Lake Quavianen, and they wanted to get to know them. I mean, like, if you were a vice regent, or you were like a subservient to a god, and then that god creates some other creatures, you being a devout servant and devout follower of that god, well, would want to know what your god created, and would want to know it, love it, adore it. The Valar were absolutely in love and adored the Elves that were the creation of their god. And so the Valar, Orome, as only like some Lord of the Rings readers might be familiar with Orome, because he's obviously mentioned in the Lord of the Rings, one of the few Valar who are actually mentioned by name. If you didn't know, it was in the passage where King Theoden arrives at the fields of Pelennor with Rohirrim, and he's about to charge and try to save Gondor. He finally answering the beacons that were lit and came to help Gondor, fulfilling his oath of his forefathers, Eorl the Young of the Rohirrims, who first made the oath to help Gondor in need. So he finally came to fulfill that oath, and in his charge, as mentioned, it's a line that's often forgotten and not many people know it or even notice it. And obviously when it was published, the Lord of the Rings, that is, only literally 3 people in the whole world knew what Tolkien wrote actually meant, because the Silmarillion was not a thing at the moment. So it was only C.S. Lewis, Tolkien himself, and his son Christopher Tolkien, the 3 people in the whole world who knew exactly what these few lines meant, as it said when Theoden charged against in Pelennor Fields, as said, even as Orome the Great in the Battle of Valor when the world was young. That was a line. Even as Orome the Great in the Battle of the Valar when the world was young. And that is Orome, who found the first elves in chilling there in Lake Quenta, where they woke up. So he found them. He asked them to come check out Valinor, and we'd like to have all of you over there, so we can learn from you and you can learn from us. Basically, we are both creations of the same God. Let's be in the blessed realm that where like the god or the demigods or angels reside. He gave invitations. So there were 3 main kindreds of the elves. The first who accepted the call right away were the Vanyar. The second ones who accepted the call were under the leadership of the Noldor, and the third one were the Teleri. So these were the 3 kindreds of the elves: Vanyar, Noldor, Teleri. Off topic, Crayon Gourmet, so not gonna address that right now. So the Vanyar were the first one to accept, Noldor the second, and Teleri the third ones. So they first, before they accept the invites, they only send their 3 representatives, their 3 leaders. So it's Elwë, Finwë, and Ingwë. They 3 people, 3 elves, they follow Orome. They go over to the blessed realm of Valinor, check it out. They really like it. They think that this is great that this is happening. They were amazed by everything. They saw the light of the 2 trees that obviously Yavanna had kindled. Obviously should make a side note to the other 2 prominent Valars that are mentioned, which is Aule and Yavanna. And that's one thing. Aule did something meanwhile as well while I'm talking about the elves, but I guess I'll cover it in a second. Damn, this recap is taking a long time. Alright, so they invite, Orome invites the 3 representatives of the 3 factions of the elves. They all see the light of the 2 trees. They are amazed by it because Yavanna can makes these 2 trees which gives lights to the whole of Middle Earth. It's like day every day, all of the days. There is no night because there's just light of the 2 trees. But anyways, that happens. They go back, they tell their people. Ingwë tells his people, Elwë tells his people, and Finwë tells his people. It's so cool, we should all go. So they start moving there. They start the journey. All the 3 factions of the elves start their journey towards the blessed realm of Valinor. And Some of them, when they reach Misty Mountain, they stray. So a faction of the Teleri goes off and goes to the south because they really like how the river Anduin looks, and they are really happy with it. So they enjoy the company of the other things, and they like the river, so they stay over there. So they never follow through with the journey. Then another faction stops in Beleriand, and that's a story on its own, obviously, that we did cover in the previous chapters. So I'll just briefly mention their king, Eleuthengol, as he's known for the rest of his life. He breaks off, or like he gets lost and gets he gets lost in the woods and meets fairy god thing who's a Maiar, and falls in love, and he never leaves. He's like, I'm in love with this chick, I'm not leaving. So a faction of the Teleri gets broken off, and they become in two different factions, so Elve and Olwe. So Olwe continues, while Elwe and some of his people still stay behind, who were loyal to Elwe, and they stay behind, first trying to search for their king, and when eventually they found him and found out, alright, our king is in love with a god or a demigod, semigod, whatever. So Valor is the one thing I mentioned. The second, creatures that are lesser than Valar, who were initially thought of as like each Valar had a bunch of Maya under them. So each Valar had like a bunch of Maiar under them, and that was the initial concept, but later it kind of got changed in the sense that it's not always Valar is always associated with having some Maiar under it. Basically, Valar are the higher creatures, and Maiar are 1 degree under them in terms of power and abilities and all the holy mojo stuff. But anyways, Eleuthengol, or Elwe as we knew him in the beginning, falls in love with this Maiar, and that's he stays in Beleriand and doesn't move on, just stays there. Olwe and Ingwe Finve, they still continue. They all go abroad, take the island. Obviously there are gods involved, so they just told them all to step onto the island and they will transport you to Valinor. But on their way, Teleri group, who were under Olwe, brother of Elwe, who were leaders of Teleri together, the third faction, and they say like they don't want to really leave the site of Middle-earth. And then the Valar have like a decision to make, and they decide, okay, let's make them an island where they're still able to see Middle-earth and still be close enough to the blessed realm of Valinor. And that's how Tol Eressëa and the Lonely Isle was created. And they left the Teleri under Olwe in that area, which had the site of Middle-earth. So didn't leave the site of Middle-earth, but also was close enough to the blessed realm of Aman, Valinor. While all the Finve people and all the Ingwe people, meaning all the Noldor and all the Vanyar, got to the Valinor, and there they stayed. They learned, they got under different Valar, learned stuff from them. Aule, as I mentioned before, was one of the Valar, which is prominent in the sense that while he was waiting, obviously he creates stuff, he created all the mountains and whatnot. While he were waiting, he got impatient, and like he was waiting that Ilúvatar was doing something or creating something, but he had like kind of a vision what it was, so he made dwarves. But those dwarves were only worked, or like only did what he wanted them to do when he was intentionally thinking of them. You can think of it as like a telekinesis or something that he had to will it. Those dwarves were like really dolls, or they were nothing. If he did not actually think of them or had them do something by his will. So they were just basically puppets. They do not have like a soul to them, if we can use the term soul. When that happened, obviously Ilúvatar, the god, found out what he did, and Ilúvatar had a plan of his own. So he obviously wanted the elves to come to life, but he saw what his one of his favorite Valar, Aule, was doing, and he was generous, and he was kind, and he was gracious. That he when Aule got caught in that creating the dwarf thing, he repented. He said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but I just really wanted to create something to have of my own and to love and adore. So I'm sorry." And obviously, Ilúvatar, being the merciful god he accepted it, and he said, "Okay, but I won't destroy your creatures," because Aule was ready. Aule was like, "Okay, fine, you're mad. I'm sorry I got caught. I'll just destroy these things I created right away." And Ilúvatar was like, "No, just don't. Okay, you made them. I'll adopt them." So like, it wasn't in my plans to have those, but I'll adopt them. You can have them. Who knows, maybe it was in his plans, but who knows. But he did adopt them, in the sense that that soul that they were missing, that free will, that obviously no Valar can give to any creation, he gave dwarves free will. He adopted them. So when the elves awoke, that's pretty much when the dwarves awoke as well. But anyways, moving on, the factions in the blessed realm of Valinor, being the Vanyar and the Noldor. So they get children, they get married, they get divorced. Okay, well, that's a different and a complicated chapter on its own about the divorce and complications of Finwë, good old Finwë, the leader of Noldor. But Finwë has a child called Fëanor. Each elf is looking for something. Vanyar is feeling so close to Manwë, the lord of the worlds and everything. Go reside near or at the bottom of Teniquitl, the mountain where Manwë lives with his wife Varda. And Finwë's people, Noldor, feeling more creationist. Creationist, that's a weird word to use, Mitch. Not creationists, but people who like to create and make stuff. Aule is obviously one of the makers. He made the dwarves, he made the mountains, he likes to make stuff. Noldor kind of got under his wing to make stuff and everything that. All this time, Melkor is obviously in the north of Middle-earth, planning an attack on Valinor, trying to really show his work and trying to really because he's dominant, he's powerful, and no doubt about it. He's one of the more powerful Valars, even like as powerful as Manwë, if not more. And he eventually gets aligned himself with this another Maiar, which is called Angoliant. Obviously, we have all met recently in Lotro, the daughter of Angoliant, good old Shelob that we try to kill every now and then in Lotro. So Shelob being the daughter of Angoliant, but Angoliant was a much more powerful creature, a Maiar from all accounts, as it's like kind of, that's my understanding of it. I think according to my interpretation of it, Angoliant was definitely a Maiar who took the form of some kind of spider, a giant spider which sucked stuff. Okay, and so all this time the elves are being called over here, elves learning stuff and all the good stuff. And then Yavanna made the two trees which were so beautiful and gave light to all of the Middle Earth, and one light was like golden and the other light was like silverish, and the two trees were Laurelin and Telperion. So those two trees were made. Yavanna put all her energy and power and mana and all that wrath in it to make those two trees, and she spent herself basically. Obviously, she also made the ents. So the girl was busy making stuff and giving her all to creatures and living beings that are not human. So that's happened, and then Melkor aligned himself with Angoliant, and they came over and while the Valar and the Elves were celebrating on Taniquetil, there was a party going on. Well, Melkor came and with Angoliant, and they killed the two trees. Angoliant sucked all the light out of the two trees of Valinor, sucked all the light, and she became powerful as hell, that even Melkor got afraid of her. But obviously they came, they destroyed, and then they that's what they did. And that's pretty much where kind of we left off. Only thing that is missing is the part after that. So they did that, and the elves, the Valar, were devastated by this shock that happened. And they were so sad, and Nienna came to mourn. Nienna, another important Valar, who obviously just like a tidbit, Nienna is the one who mentored our good old Olorin. Olorin is the name of Gandalf. So Gandalf is a student of Nienna. Nienna being the most compassionate, empathetic goddess of Valar. So she mourns for the hearse of Middle Earth and all the creatures in Middle Earth, and her tears are a blessing, her tears are healing. She obviously cried for the death of the two trees. When that happened, before that time, Fëanor. Let's talk about our old friend Fëanor. the one and only Fëanor. Fëanor was a son of Finwë, the great leader of the Noldor, and his mother passed away due to terrible, tragic circumstances. And when he got born, he had some power in him, and all the love that his father had for his mother went to him, in the sense of there was some divine blessing that was given to him by his father, or even his spirit that was born was so powerful that it like took the life of his mother. And because we are in Valinor, meaning that the elves who die can always come back to life, but Fëanor did something while being born, or there was some situation that the damage to the soul of her mother was so much that she wasn't even able to come back. There's obviously I'm like fascinated to share this, whole really complicated, oh my goodness, fascinating chapter on this in Morgoth's Ring. It's, I think, the 11th volume in the history of Middle-earth that Christopher Tolkien's son, posted, which followed the thought process of Tolkien in creating these stories. And some volumes focus on the story of the Lord of the Rings, how it was made, and like what the characters were called in the beginning, how their names changed and whatnot. And when we got to the Morgoth's Ring, it's one of the more fascinating things, because it exactly talks about this thing that we were talking about. And I wasn't, obviously, I hadn't read it the last time we covered this subject of Finwë and Fëanor being born, but it's covered, like, now that having read it, it's definitely enriched my understanding of it, is all the complications that went into that discussion of an elf divorce, in a sense, like how Finwë like married again, and like how can you marry again when your wife always has the possibility to come back to life, because like if elves die, they go to Mandos, and then after a while they can always come back. But there was something, or some Tolkien was trying to rationalize it, or trying to comprehend that thing, like when it's broken, in a sense that you can't do that, that the breaking of the relationship, or the divorce, as we can say, of Finwë and his wife, and then him marrying again. Fascinating study for sure, but for another time. So the story continues of Fëanor, this really powerful creature who was born in Valinor under the light of the two trees, got under the study of Aule the Maker, learned stuff, and was so amazing. And then he made these 3 Silmarils, these amazing things that had a light of its own, and captured some light of the two trees of Valinor as well, and mixed it, and then it had some power and blessing and amazingness of their own as well. Like, they did not only borrow light, but they also emitted light of their own as well. He really did something that was incredible, that was so unique, that is never replicated again, unless on like some really specific unique circumstances. Only thing I can think of is the Palantir, the seeing stones that like people use and whatnot, like the 7 seeing stones that were ended up in Middle Earth as well, that Saruman had, and like Denethor had in Minas Tirith, and like Sauron had one, and then there were a bunch of 4 others, others as well. So it was those, or then the One Ring. That's the only other direct comparison that one can draw from that. It's the One Ring. The Sauron put his power, his life essence into the One Ring, so that when the One Ring got destroyed, Sauron got destroyed. Not to that extent, but something similar is what Fëanor did, is putting some power into those Silmarils. To a lesser degree, you can see Celebrimbor doing that. Celebrimbor, who made the 3 rings, 3 elven rings, Nenya, Vilya, and other one I don't remember the name of, but the 3 elven rings that, like, Gandalf had one, Elrond had one, and Galadriel had one, and they had power to it. And Celebrimbor obviously put his power, his energy, essence, mana, power, or whatever, in it. In the same way, Fëanor created also something that was so unique and precious and amazing. Even the Valor amazed at it. It was so amazing that he created those 3 Silmarils that was so unique and powerful. So the light of the 2 trees is gone. Angoliant sucked it out and stole it, and ate it for breakfast. And then Melkor and Angoliant ran away after doing that. When the Valar found it out, they asked Fëanor if Joanna said it's a big blow and I will never be able to create that light ever again, or the light of the 2 trees ever again. But if I were to have some of that light, I would be able to rekindle the trees before their roots expire or something. So if Fëanor let me have his Silmarils, I can break them open and you can have it again. And that was such a heavy ask, because that's when things got really, really bad. And that's where we're at. And so you gotta realize only Valor, who was kind of sympathetic to that situation of the ask that Fëanor just got from the gods, from the Valar, is that can you give us one of or like 1, 2, or 3 of those beautiful things that you made? Can you give us 1 or 2 or 3? I don't know. And Fëanor was like, I don't know about that. He didn't say anything. But Aule, at that time, obviously, stepped up. And him being the maker, him remembering what happened with the dwarves and everything, him knowing farewell how precious it is when you make something, just asked the Valar to... Let's give him a moment to think about it, because you really can't ask somebody to give up their babies like that. Hey, can we take a baby of yours and sacrifice it for the greater good? I don't know. So here is where pretty much we stopped 9 months ago or something like that. And here's where I'll pick it up briefly and then we'll see. Okay. Alright, it's all here. But Fëanor spoke then and cried bitterly. For the less even as for the greater, there is some deed that he may accomplish but only once. And in that deed his heart shall rest. It may be that I can unlock my jewels, but never again shall I make their like. And if I must break them, I shall break my heart, and I shall be slain first of all the Eldar in Aman. "Not the first," said Mandos. But they did not understand his word. And again there was silence while Fëanor brooded in the dark. It seemed to him that he was beset in a ring of enemies, and the words of Melkor returned to him, saying that the Silmarils were not safe if the Valar would possess them. "And is he not Valar as they are?" said his thought. "And does he not understand their hearts? Yeah, a thief shall reveal thieves." Then he cried aloud, "This thing I will not do of free will, but if the Valar will constrain me, then shall I know indeed that Melkor is of their kindred." Then Mandos said, "Thou hast spoken." And Niena arose and went up to Elzohar and cast back her grey hood, and with her tears washed away the defilements of Angoliant. And she sang in mourning for the bitterness of the world and the marring of Arda. Alright, just to go over Fëanor spoke. Okay, so Fëanor, as I obviously briefly alluded to it, we have obviously covered this chapter before in the last podcast as well, but I'll just go over it briefly. As I said, it's a great ask of the Valar to ask them of that, as Aule rightly pointed so as well. Do not be hasty. It's a great thing that you're asking this man, this elf that made this amazing thing that he put all his being into to make the greatest things ever, the Silmarils. That's a great ask. And Fëanor in the end just says, "No, I'm not gonna do it. Like, you can make me do it. It will break my heart and break me and everything. And you gotta kill me to do it. I'm not gonna do it otherwise. Just kill me and then take my Silmarils. That's the only way." But okay, so another Valar, obviously I skipped in my intro of the Valar, is Mandos. Mandos is the Doom speaker. Doom in the old sense, meaning fate. He's the one who knows everybody's fate. He's the Doom speaker of the Valar. He knows everything that happens, or most of everything that happens in Arda, the world. And well, here he obviously cryptically says, "Not the first," as it will later become evident what he meant. But Fëanor pretty much says, like, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna take Silmarils from me against my will, then I will definitely know that you are exactly what Melkor said, and I'll know that you were exactly what Melkor is. You're of the same freaking kindred. Like, you're all the same if you're gonna do that, to take the Silmarils forcibly from me. And at that moment, Mandos, again being the ever wise and know-it-all, so, "Well, you have spoken, so okay, fine. We hear you." That's what he's saying. "Okay, we heard you. Fine. Calm down." And well, Niena, another Valar, as I already previously mentioned, is the teacher of Gandalf. That's where Gandalf learned his pity. Pity is not a bad word in the sense that Tolkien uses it in his works, in the old English sense of pity. When you pity somebody, it's not like looking down on them or anything. You pity them because you empathize with them. Well, Niena obviously does her thing. Well, her tears heal, so she's trying to heal a little bit all that defilements that Angoliant brought, and she sang and mourned for the marring of Arda. It says what happened. The Arda was marred then, But not just then, even before then. But it's one of the big instances of evil doing some really bad things and really causing some deep damage to the whole of Middle Earth and consuming, destroying, defiling the two trees of Valinor, one of the pure sources of light for the whole of the world at that moment. Michi, you can continue from "But even as Nienna mourned."
But even as Nienna mourned, there came messengers from Formenos, and they were Noldor and bore new tidings of evil. For they told how a blind darkness came northward, and in the midst walked some power for which there was no name, and the darkness issued from it. But Melkor also was there, and he came to the house of Feanor, and there he slew Finwë, king of the Noldor, before his doors, and spilled the first blood in the blessed realm. For Finwë alone had not fled the horror of the dark. And they told that Melkor had broken the stronghold of Formenos and taken all the jewels of the Noldor that were hoarded in that place, and the Silmarils were gone. Whoa.
Yeah, that is what happened. As Nienna was doing her thing, the messages came from Formenos. That's where Feanor and Finwë resided. That's where Finwë lived with Feanor. And I mean, that's it. It's like after Melkor and Angoliant were done destroying and taking light with two trees, obviously Melkor really obviously knew about the Silmarils and really freaking wanted them. He went to the house of Feanor and he killed Finwë. So that thing that if you scroll up a little bit, when Feanor says, "I shall break my heart, I shall be slain, first of all the Eldar in Aman," and Mandos replies, "Not the first." There we go. We found it. We found the first. That's what he meant. Feanor was not gonna be the first one to get slayed or get slain in Aman. It would be Finwë, and that's what Mandos knew. He knows most everything, and that's why he called Feanor right out there. Like, you know, you're not gonna be the first one, dude. He knew who was gonna be the first one because he knew. So it's an interesting question if he knew, why didn't he say something? But it works in weird ways. That's definitely an interesting question to think about for sure. Is like, if somebody has some forevision of something bad, are they supposed to stop it? Or are they supposed to have Providence take care of it?
But if it's fake, even if they say something, will the same event still happen in some
other way?
Yeah, some sort of paradox that even if you prevent it, maybe you're actually, sort of pushing along the instance to actually happen if you're trying to prevent it.
True. I mean, it's interesting to see, like, is it wise? Maybe like he knew the outcome, even if it said something that maybe something else more weird or more worse would have happened. That's like fate, and it's just interesting to see. But obviously he's not at liberty, obviously, to tell everybody their doom. One of the qualities that we read about Mandos in the very beginning was that he doesn't speak often. He only speaks seldom, really at the particular moments, and like really only at like the insistence of if Manwë asks him to actually say something, then he'll say it. But other than that, it's really seldom he will say something or tell his doom. So obviously he's being true to his nature and not just saying, yeah, you won't be the first one, but let's move on, because obviously he's not at the liberty of speaking too much or telling people their fates, because that'll be counterproductive to just say, if everybody knew their fate, then how is the world gonna function? But the news comes that Melkor came in, killed Finwë, and took the jewels of Noldor, and also the Silmarils were gone. It's over. No, he took the Silmarils. We obviously know from previous readings of the previous episodes of this podcast that Melkor really envied the Silmarils, really wanted them, desired them, and well, he took them eventually. And there we go. You can take the next paragraph as well.
Then Feanor rose, and lifting up his hand before Manwë, he cursed Melkor, naming him Morgoth, the black foe of the world. And by that name only was he known to the Eldar ever after. And he cursed also the summons of Manwë and the hour in which he came to Taniquito, thinking in the madness of his rage and grief that had he been at Formenos, his strength would have availed more than to be slain also, as Melkor had purposed. Then Feanor ran from the Ring of Doom and fled into the night, for his father was dearer to him than the light of Valinor or the peerless works of his hands. And who among sons of elves or of men have held their fathers of greater worth?
We all know the circumstances in which Feanor was born. His mother pretty much died because of all the strength of the spirit that was delivered or got born through her, and this fire that Feanor had in himself, and then obviously all the love that Finwë had for his wife came to his son, and that's what we read in the text. So after hearing this, obviously he is shocked and he is like beyond pissed at the moment. He doesn't care if it's Manwë or whatnot, and he's like, yeah, screw Manwë and like screw Melkor as well. And that is the first time we are hearing the word Morgoth, because that is pretty much how we are gonna know him for the rest of the text actually. Melkor, he's like obviously never gonna be called again, because Feanor is the one who named him Morgoth, the black foe, the enemy of the world, and that is the name as it will be remembered or known or written for the rest of the text pretty much. Melkor is hardly ever gonna be mentioned again, so Melkor is gonna be Morgoth now, because that's what Feanor and his wrath named him. And well, he was mad. He obviously thought that if he were with his father, he could have prevented it. He could have stopped Melkor from killing his father. He could have stopped Melkor, period. And he wasn't happy about it. He was like, yeah, you called us here at the really bad time in this circle of doom or ring of doom near Taniquito. That's the mountain where Manwë lives. And he obviously loved his father. There's no doubt about it. And he obviously hates Melkor. There's no doubt about it. And he obviously loved the Silmarils, and there's no doubt about it. There's so many things about that just happened to this one elf, who is the greatest smith of Middle Earth of forever. Middle Earth Animan, greatest smith in Arda, made the best thing any human or elf can make, or dwarf can make. And he just heard that he lost his father got killed, Melkor was a true enemy. No matter what, that he thought in the beginning that Melkor was right about the Valar wanting to take his Silmarils and whatnot. But the Valar did not do that. The Valar did not force Fëanor to give up the Silmarils. They did not do that. So let's not forget about it. About the goodness of the Valar. And now he knows that Melkor was a liar. Melkor wanted his Silmarils, and he was just poisoning him against the Valar and creating doubts and whatnot. And now he knows, and he cursed it. He will forever hate Melkor for the rest of his life, and named him Morgoth. And that's how Melkor will be known for the rest of the history of Middle-earth. And yeah, it's no doubt about it. Fëanor is a complicated character, and he will obviously become even more complicated for the rest of the chapter and the chapters to come. That's all I'll say. But in this moment, at least, at face value, his anger was justified in not wanting to give the Silmarils. That was his creation, and his doubt was kind of justified since the Valar asked for them. But then also his enmity and hatred for Melkor is also evident and obvious, that he hates Melkor and everything about him, and he called him Morgoth. And let's kind of have that in the back of our minds while moving forward. Many there grieved for the anguish of Fëanor, but his loss was not his alone, and Yavanna wept by the mound, in fear that the darkness should swallow the last rays of the light of Valinor forever. For though the Valar did not yet understand fully what had befallen, they perceived that Melkor had called upon some aid that came from beyond Arda. The Silmarils had passed away, and all one, it may seem, whether Fëanor had said yea or nay to Yavanna. Yet had he said yea at the first, before the tidings came from Formenos, it may be that his after deeds would have been other than they were. But now the doom of the Noldor drew near. Meanwhile, Morgoth, escaping from the pursuit of the Valar, came to the wastes of Ahriman. This land lay northward between the mountains of the Pelori and the Great Sea, as Avatar lay to the south, but Ahriman was a wider land. And between the shores and the mountains were barren plains, even colder as the ice drew nearer. Through this region Morgoth and Angoliant passed in haste, and so came through the great mists of Oyumure to the Helcaraxe, where the strait between Ahriman and Middle-earth was filled with grinding ice, and he crossed over and came back at last to the north of the outer lands. Together they went on, for Morgoth could not elude Angoliant, and her cloud was still about him, and all her eyes were upon him. And they came to those lands that lay north of the Firth of Drangest. Now Morgoth was drawing near to the ruins of Angband, where his great western stronghold had been, and Angoliant perceived his hope and knew that there knew that here he would seek to escape from her, and she stayed him, demanding that he fulfill his promise. "Blackheart," she said, "I have done thy bidding, but I hunger still." "What wouldst thou have more?" said Morgoth. "Dost thou desire all the world for thy belly? I do not vow to give thee that. I am its lord." "Not so much," said Angoliant, "but thou hast a great treasure from Formenos. I will have all that. Yea, with both hands thou shalt give it." Then perforce Morgoth surrendered to her the gems that he bore with him, one by one and grudgingly, and she devoured them, and their beauty perished from the world. Huger and darker yet grew Angoliant, but her lust was unsalted. "With one hand thou givest," she said, "with the left only. Open the right hand." In his right hand Morgoth held close the Silmarils, and though they were locked in a crystal casket, they had begun to bum him, and his hand was clenched in pain, but he would not open it. "Nay," he said, thou hast had thy doe, for with my power that I put into thee, thy work was accomplished. I need thee no more. These things thou shalt not have nor see. I name them unto myself forever." Okay, gonna stop here for sure and let's scroll back. There's so much over here. Obviously, I've read a lot of the paragraphs, but they were done for a purpose, to have a coherent commentary on them. Obviously, the anguish of Fëanor understood, and Yavanna understood as well. Like, it's gone, because Yavanna, who lost the two trees, and we know she put her everything in the two trees, and her only last hope was that she can get Fëanor to give up his Silmarils so she can break them open and rekindle the light of the two trees. Would have been a nice thing to do. But now that can't happen, and she wept. She understood that the gravity of the situation, that if Melkor has the Silmarils, then it's gone, it's over. Melkor is not gonna give them up, and obviously gonna be fine, and then it might be even too late to rekindle the light of the two trees. Maybe their roots have decayed already, who knows. And obviously it was understood that, well, Fëanor, it didn't matter what Fëanor said, yes or no, didn't matter. Obviously he did say no, and he said, take it off my, kill me and then take it. But the commenter, or obviously in Silmarillion, we do not have a narrator. So obviously that is written, seems like the word of God or something. You know what I mean? In Lord of the Rings and in The Hobbit, we obviously have a framework. We are reading the story from the perspective of Bilbo in The Hobbit and from perspective of Frodo in the Lord of the Rings, while in this version of the Silmarillion, I should say, because obviously Tolkien did in the beginning have or did even till the very last have a narrator to these stories as well. So like whenever we got something that is just said, it was understood to be a comment from the narrator who was telling the story. Frodo in Lord of the Rings and Bilbo in The Hobbit, and from this one it was gonna be Elfwina, a man, I think. I'm obviously blanking on that, but a man who somehow ended up in a cottage of lost tales and whatnot, and heard these stories from these elves, and then he narrated those stories or brought them back to our earth. You know what I mean? So in the beginning, Silmarillion was also gonna have a narrator, Elfwina, who heard these stories from elves or like a fairy realm, and then brought them back to our current earth, and that's how we know all these stories. But since in this printed Silmarillion, at least we do not have a narrator, so obviously everything that is just said appears to be just like the word of God, as if we're listening to the word of God or something, reading Bible or whatnot. So Silmarils were gone, but here the commenter or the narrator of the story, take it whoever you think it is saying that if Fëanor had in that moment decided, or even said, like even intended, not done obviously, because the Silmarils were already stolen by Melkor, even his father dead, but if Fëanor had intended to give of his free will the Silmarils to Yavanna to break them, to rekindle the trees, then maybe his rest of the life and all things he did afterwards would have been different. Like it's a lot of like if like if he had made a better decision in that moment, then the rest of his life would have been maybe better. Who knows? I don't know. But that's pretty much the text, what the text is telling us, that. But it would have been better for him if he had given the Silmarils to the gods, literal freaking gods, of his free will. When a freaking god is asking you, can I have this? I mean, you should just give it to her. But obviously, yeah, Fëanor is just not anybody. He is somebody special. And but now the doom of the Noldor drew near. Well, that's foreshadowing as it gets. I mean, like nothing's more clearer than that. Like they, as we've often talked even before in the past, that the structure of the Silmarillion is a lot of like foreshadowing, because it obviously reads like a mythology, religious kind of text. That's what it is, and that's what it kind of got changed to. That is definitely not how it was kind of thought in the beginning by Tolkien. But Christopher Tolkien made a decision to take out the narrator aspect of it, and now it definitely reads like a word of God. And obviously, if I don't know, I have, but I don't know, Michi, if you have ever listened to the Martin Shaw's recording of this.
No.
The dude has literally like voice of so profound, deep voice. And when he reads it, it literally seems like Eru is talking. He is like really. Meanwhile, Morgoth, escaping from the pursuit of the Valor, came to the waste of Ahriman. So that's how his voice is, Martin Shaw, and that's the one who read the Silmarillion for the audiobook. I did listen to it. I was like amazed by his really godlike voice. But anyways, so Morgoth starts escaping. If you're like kind of remember the map, the Middle Earth. So obviously I don't have it in front of me at the moment. So Middle Earth is to the right side, Aman to the left side, and they're kind of connected in the northern edges. So they're not disconnected. So Valinor goes north, and then like Middle Earth extends north, and then there's a point where they both arch and meet in a place called Helcaraxe. And that's where, like, from Valinor, that's where Morgoth and Angoliant head towards. So towards the north, east, and to cross over to Middle Earth through that landscape of Helcaraxe. And the really interesting part, that's why I read so much, is the group dynamic between the two of them. Obviously, it's said that Melkor is the Valor, the big Satan, and well, Angoliant is said to be a Maiar, or is believed to be a Maiar, or an ancient spirit or whatnot, but obviously not a Valar. Like, Melkor is the Valar, Angoliant is not the Valar. But the dynamic between the two, like, Morgoth is watching him and she's watching him. Like, Morgoth is watching her and she's definitely watching him. And they're like, they don't trust each other, obviously. She knows, like, he'll like ditch me or betray me the first chance he gets. And he's also like, she's gonna like drink everything. Like, she already drank the two bloody trees and got all powerful and whatnot. She's gonna want more. And like, he offered her, like, she was like, I'm still thirsty, give me more. It's like feed me more. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure. He obviously gives her some of the gems that he stole, because obviously Fëanor, in his mansion over there in Valinor, in Formenos, had a lot more than just the Silmarils. So he had a lot of other gems as well that the Noldor created. The Noldor were a creative people, and so was Fëanor. Silmarils were not obviously the only thing he made. He made a lot more and plenty more other things as well. And well, she asks him, give me more. And well, Morgoth obviously does. He gives her more. And but, well, obviously she said, like, you're giving from only one hand. what's in your other hand? And I see. And and he's like, yeah, okay, well, you've had your fun, but no, the thing in my other hand, those I claim to myself, those are mine, so back the fuck off. That's pretty much it. Like, she wants more to feed, and he's like, yeah, no, definitely not happening. Rightly so. And she's gonna be pissed. Let's see. You can carry on. Let's do this last big paragraph and then we can stop it.
But Ungoliant had grown great, and he less, by the power that had gone out of him. And she rose against him, and her cloud closed about him. And she enmeshed him in a web of clinging thongs to strangle him. Then Morgoth sent forth a terrible cry that echoed in the mountains. Therefore that region was called Lamoth, for the echoes of his voice dwelt there ever after, so that any who cried aloud in that land awoke them, and all the waste between the hills and the sea was filled with a clamor as of voices in anguish. The cry of Morgoth in that hour was the greatest and the most dreadful that has ever heard in the northern world. The mountains shook, and the earth trembled, and rocks were riven asunder. Deep in forgotten places that cry was heard, far beneath the rain hall of Angband, in vaults in which the Valar, in the haste of their assault, had not descended. Balrogs lurked still, awaiting ever the return of their lord. And now swiftly they arose, and passing over Hithlum, they came to Lamoth as a tempest of fire. With their wisps of flame they smote asunder the webs of Ungoliant, and she quailed, and turned to flight, belching black vapors to cover her. And fleeing from the north she went into Beleriand, and dwelt beneath arid Gorgroth, in that dark valley that was ever called Nan Dungortheb, the valley of dreadful death, because of the horror that she bred there. For other foul creatures of spider form had dwelt there since the days of the delving of Angbad, and she mated with them, and devoured them. And even after Ungoliant herself departed, and went whither she would into the forgotten south of the world, her offspring abode there, and wove their hideous webs. Of the fate of Ungoliant no tale tells, yet some have said that she ended long ago, when in their uttermost famine she devoured herself at last.
Whew, damn, that's a tragic tale of Angoliant.
Well, she had offspring, so she moved on.
Oh yeah, she definitely gave us a gift in Shelob. That was it. Shelob, daughter of Angoliant. But yeah, I mean, she had a lot of power. So the light of the two trees that she drank obviously gave her some immense kind of power, to be so much that even a freaking Valar like Melkor was afraid of it. And he got him. Like, she wanted the Silmarillions. Like, that hunger she had, that wasn't quenched by just the gems of the Noldor. She wanted the Silmarils as well. Like, all the light. She was an unlight. And she, like, even got Melkor there. And Melkor was, like, almost on the brink of, like, getting killed by her. And so, obviously, in my recap, I did not follow or did not tell the first tale of the battle of Valar and Melkor. Obviously, there was the first battle of the Valar versus Melkor, and Valar came and freaking got Melkor and destroyed him, destroyed his fortress and got him. Took him to be a prisoner in Valinor. But over the time, Valar, being as nice and good and amazing and awesome as they are and forgiving, kind of started letting him out, and that's when Melkor started poisoning the Noldor against the Valar, especially Fëanor, and that's how that all went through. But when the Valar came to get Melkor, or had the war with him in the first one, Melkor had a fortress over there, and the Valar obviously didn't check all the deep and forgotten places that were in the tunnels and the whole, all the basements and whatnot of the fortress, where Melkor still had a bunch of Balrogs. And obviously Balrog is the word we are really familiar with from Lord of the Rings. And like we have a Balrog in the Rift that we fight, or a Balrog on in Os Dunhat Fearwing, and where else? Well, in Moria, in the epic instance and whatnot. But yeah, Balrog is the one that killed Gandalf the first time. So there were many Balrogs that's still over there who were forgotten, and just like they were like, our master is gone, so let's just keep chilling here. Balrogs are also Maiar type of creatures, kind of. I say kind of because the exact theology or the exact nature of them is still kind of sketchy and not really well thought out of. Obviously we know how they are portrayed in the movies, but that's like not entirely obvious, because there are like hundreds and hundreds of Balrogs at the sack of Gondolin, and then like Glorfindel kills like 100 of them or something. Who's an elf, Glorfindel. We see him in the game as well as in the text. He's just an elf. So you see there's some problem with the sizing of them as well. Like, are they like as big as they were shown in the movies or even in the game? That an elf of just normal size, Glorfindel, he's able to kill like 100 of them before dying. But it is what it is. So Balrog is just some shadow and fire creatures who are bad. And well, they hear this cry that Morgoth, not Melkor anymore. He's gonna be Morgoth forever. So Morgoth makes this, like, he's hurting, like, he's crying. Well, they hear the call of their master and like, oh wow, our master is in trouble. They go over and get Angoliant. And Angoliant, obviously, is a self-preservant, and she sees that with like freaking 100 of Balrogs with fire and shadow powers are coming to attack her. Well, she's gonna obviously flee. That's what she does, and well, that's how Melkor gets saved, because his Balrog's army of Balrogs comes to save him from Angoliant, because Angoliant at that moment is like, screw you, I got you, so I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna get those Silmarils from you. That's how powerful Angoliant is, and there's nothing Melkor could do to save himself. That's how powerless he is against this beefed up version of a Maiar who has like drank the blood of the two trees of Valinor, or the light of the two trees of Valinor, and all the gems, and is like grown to massive stature and even can take on freaking Satan himself. So that's it. And then obviously she flees and she goes to hide over there sometime in Ered Gorgoroth in Beleriand, and then goes over down, obviously escapes towards, and I don't know, maybe Mirkwood for a little while before going down all the way to near Mordor in the valley in Lad Morgul. And eventually maybe having Shelob over there somehow. And obviously her fate is not really known. I don't think I've arrived to any other theories about it, or I haven't read any theories about her death as well, even in the History of the Middle-earth series. If I come across it, I'll share it maybe in the next session. But yeah, she eventually, fades into nothingness. Obviously, she left her spawn to have a battle with our good old Samwise Gamgee in the later story of the War of the Ring. But here is where we should end our 15th session of Casual Book Club Estelore, and I hope everybody enjoyed it, and everybody who commented stuff in. We got a comment from a gay Aragorn, Namichi. I don't know what to make of that. Gay Aragorn says on Twitch, how many queer people were in the Lord of the Rings besides Aragorn? All right. I mean, obviously. I mean, first of all, fuck Aragorn. He stole Ottoman, so I'm not gonna forgive him that. So let's not even talk about it. I don't care about Aragorn. Aragorn is dead to me.
They are in bromance, so like there's some love right
Mm.
there.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that's it. Session 15. 15 number done. Well, we covered a lot in this chapter, but there is a lot more to do. Freaking hell, this book is long as hell. But thank you everybody for watching. You can obviously catch us again, maybe tomorrow as well, if Eldotor is still down. We are looking forward to continuing the story of the Silmarillion. So Michi can finish it as well as me. All right. Thanks everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching later if you do. Catch you all the next time. Ciao from me.